Welcome back to the Pieces of My African Soul podcast. It has been a while. I am your host, Jephthah Malela, and it's so good to be back. I was on a sabbatical, and a lot has happened between May and now. But it's always good to be back. Thank you for staying tuned, for staying faithful. And, I was surprised by the numbers while I was away. You guys kept listening in over and over and over again. And that means a lot to me. So among the things I've been thinking about lately is, the state of the Kenyan youth and our place, our future, our prospect. What is it that defines us? And, our generation has come of age because people of my age group, they're about 26 to 30 now, and those who are below our age group are also between 20 to 25. Those are very important years in terms of schooling, career, and all. And I think living in Kenya, it is mostly a Kenyan who would exactly understand how it is. An example is the other day I went to refill my gas. And the tank had increased by almost 20% in terms of its pricing, something I had not budgeted for. Of course, I had watched the news, and they were going to impose more excise duty, but I didn't know it was going to take effect immediately. And I wonder, these parliamentarians, when they're making this quick and deliberate decisions, do they even ever think of the common countryman? Because truth is, I remember this time when activists went with pigs to the parliament. It was hilarious, but it showed the constant mindset that they've shown us. The MPs are so quick and easy to add money, everything unto themselves, benefits, retirement, and all. But when it comes to us, they're so easy to sacrifice us. I have been taking a hard stance on taxation. There's the people idealists who debate, you should pay your taxes, you should be faithful, you should, which it's a good idea, but not when taxes that we pay are taken and stolen by people. People are so shameless out here, and I curse them today. People who steal money from the coffers of the government, like NHIF. Like, who steals money from an hospital insurance fund that the common people rely on, people who don't have money to pay upfront? It's so shameless that people are so sick. I think they're the people who are sick to steal money from such funds. Or the National Youth Service. How do you steal money from the National Youth Service? When politicians come on, they're like, the youth are the future of the country, blah, blah, blah. They don't care about us in any way. They have never and they will never care about us. The levels of corruption are a show of how our country's culture is pathetic. Everywhere you go, everyone believes in bribing. Everyone believes in taking a hand-to-hand method. It's just a sad state of affairs. And for us, the youth, what is it then? Because personally, and most of my friends whom I know, we were born of parents who, they were born post-independence, right about, say, from 63 towards 70. Most of our parents were born then. And, Kenya was just taking ground. We're just finding, what is it then after independence? What are we going to do? What career paths are we going to follow? Some of our parents never went to school. Some who were lucky, they went through it, but with hardship. But there was not enough time, when this concept of capitalism was taking solid ground, and, Kenyans themselves were taking lead of the country. Some went ahead of others. And a disclaimer, actually, this post is not one for complaints. This episode is just to talk about the truth of the state of affairs for the youth in our country. So my point is that most of our parents ended up being, low-level civil servants, or if some were lucky, were almost upper-level civil servants. but most of them remained as menial workers. You find somebody working as a casual laborer or as a secretary or something like that. So there wasn't enough time for them to think about investments, think about buying land, buying long-term investments. They were just into educating themselves. And someone like my father, he not only had to educate himself, he had to educate his siblings. So there was no time for him to have extra money to now do other things, because once you become successful, then the whole clan now looks up to you, which is a culture which I hope we can get to talk about in the near future. So by the time they were having us, they did as much as they could to give us a good life, better than they had, which they did. Our parents have given us a far way better life than they did under this whole system, and we are so thankful to them. But being a Kenyan youth, there are struggles that are of our own that we don't share. I have friends personally I know who work and still send money back home. So that means you're still in your 20s, but the money you earn, even before you finish school, you have to send it back to your folks. You have to educate a sister, educate a brother, educate just the family. You have to take care of the family. And how you finish school, and then you have to know somebody to get you into a certain office, or you have to bribe your way into some offices. It is even alleged, underline the word alleged, that some of these places, like if you want to get into the police or the army, there's a certain amount of money you have to pay. So it doesn't actually really matter what your qualification is. It is more of what connection you have, or how much you can give to get into those places. Competence is out of question lately. It has planted a culture in young people of every means possible to be successful. If it means cheating in exams, if it means getting into shady deals, whatever it takes to just get a better life. Because if you wait on the government, you will wait on it forever. Nothing good will come out of it. It doesn't matter how good you are in school. If you can't do anything other than wait for the government to help you, then you will wait forever, because MPs are busy stealing for themselves and making rules that are baseless, instead of actually focusing on youth intended things. Take my county government, for example. The person who is allegedly the youth leader, there was no forum where the youths were consulted to have the youth leader put up. We do not even know where the guy came from. And sometimes in some of this county, you find somebody who's above 35 considered a youth leader, and then you wonder what's going on. I actually respect young people in my county who've started their businesses. I have friends, Mark, Vic Ombiro, young people who've working to set up businesses of their own. And you see how much they struggle, getting harassed by county government official. And even if you think of registering companies, the requirements and the taxation that comes with it just discourages you. So young people are really going through a lot. People you have to pay off to just keep your business running. That is, if you want to keep it in the city or in the town. It's just pathetic. Thinking that young people will even receive waivers to conduct their businesses, because being a young business person is not easy, especially if you have to do it on your own. You don't have somebody, friends or connections or people who have gone before you to give you insight or advice on how to run a business, and you're here paying tooth and nail for the business. It's so sad. And I saw a report on one of America's biggest news networks about the alleged writing industry, where Kenyans have been reported to do writing jobs for students in the US. It was just hilarious how they blamed more of Kenya than the US, because Kenyans will not write if the US students did not give them what to write. So it was more of Kenyans are the wrong ones, US are not the wrong ones, US students are not the wrong ones. But actually, first of all, despite whether this was right or wrong, you have to give it to Kenyan youth. They are everywhere looking for money because they have no alternative, and this writing gives them jobs, gives them money to maintain what they do. The question of the morality of what they do, even for me as a Christian, is something now I have to start questioning, because generally our well-being is the concern of the government, the community, the society, the family, down to the individual, and that fabric is what has been interfered with in our current society as Kenyans. So young people are doing all sorts of things, and just the other day I saw an expose on people who've turned to fraud as a way of earning money. And it is a dangerous business, because some have been arrested, killed, and all sorts of things. And it is so sad to see that young people are dying because of turning into fraud as an alternative means of earning an income. But beyond just talking about the negative sides, I have to give it to my fellow Kenyan youth. I know people who are working hard in their careers, people who've done well for themselves despite of everything, and even for artists who have to work even twice as hard, because the first thing you hear when you tell people you're an artist is, oh, are you just doing it as part-time? Are you just doing it to enjoy yourself? There's no money in art. Because as being an artist, I know how long it takes for your vision to fully mature, and people don't know, because people are quick to ask you, where is the money? Because you invest so much into your art, but it takes so much time for your art to start paying off. For example, my podcast, I don't make much from it, but you have to invest in it. Like right now I'm planning to expand and all. Monies that you chip in that people don't see in the immediate time, but yourself with your vision that it will come to fruition in the future. The amount of money I have used for producing my YouTube videos, but my YouTube has not been monetized yet. So in the short term, people don't see the benefits of investing in you as an artist, because they feel, I keep pumping money but nothing comes out. When will I start receiving a return on investments? So ours is a very tricky kind of business, especially if you do not have your own money to invest. It will be hard just pitching ideas to people, getting them to believe in what you're going to do, and actually achieving it. It becomes quite tricky. But we still have to do it. I've never thought of quit. Of course, I've thought of quitting once in a while, but I've never gotten to the point of now saying I'm dropping art. I will not do it, and I'm hopeful that in the next a few years, I will be looking back, and people will be looking back and saying, oh, now we see. Now your art is paying you. Your art is paying back all that you invested. And we are proud of what you're doing, and people become proud of you only at the end. But in the times of tears and joy, very few select people are always with you, which is still okay. But all the same, yeah. And another thing is that I see Kenyan youth leaving, and not only for the US, people going to Canada, the Middle East, especially the Middle East, Qatar. A friend told me that young people are leaving for Qatari, young people are leaving for different places. I used to be an idealist and say, yes, you should be patriotic to your country and all. But now I tell people, if you can leave, please leave. If there's a place that appreciates your talent, appreciates your skills, and there's a place that pays better, please leave. Don't even think about it. But Kenya is not running away, so you can always come back. Don't rescind your citizenship. But even if it comes to it, as long as you can have a better life, than what you currently have, just please leave and go and look for a better life. And you can always come back. Kenya is your country. I will never be against people who want to leave the country, especially young people. Young people, we have a lot of energy. We have time to explore. You can always come back and retire or get old in your country. especially if it is a country that does not fully appreciate you. I've seen the alleged youth programs that the governments have started in my county alone. I have seen them. They are just mere shows. They come and launch a project. They talk about how this project is going to be helpful to the youth. They call the youth together. Actually, I stopped going to those meetings because they waste our time. Unless I know it's somebody who's reliable, I will attend and listen to them. But some of these places are just for show. They come and gather you together. They take pictures. They go back and say, oh, we talk to the youth and this, and then they sign off big checks. But there's never any tangible investments on the youth. Especially organizations that have actually helped in truth are independent organizations and independent individuals, whom the only thing the government has done to help in that matter is to allow those individuals and organizations reach the community. But the true work of politicians, especially in working with the youth and passing laws and policies that really help the youth, nothing of that has come. And I've heard when this whole charade, I won't call it by name, was going about the country and talking about tax cut for the youth and the loans, the government loans that are heavy on the youth. They want to deduct you and you've not even started your job. It's all talk and talk and talk. But one thing makes me happy. The generation ahead of us is getting old, which is a good thing, because soon we will have to fill in those places. We have to redefine those values by ourselves, because the people gone ahead of us, very few of them have actually stuck to the traditional values of our country, which are mentioned even in our national anthem: integrity, hard work, faith, justice. There are things that have not been instilled truly in us. You look at young people and they, if you ask them what is their true identity as Kenyans, it's really hard to define around that, because the people who have gone ahead of us, and especially the people in the limelight who are the government who should define these values at a national level, have not done an entirely good job in doing that. It is so sad to see young people who cannot think for themselves independently, people who sycophantly, if that is a word, follow politician. You ask a young person, why do you follow this politician? Because he's from my tribe. It's not because of the change they can truly bring, but because of their tribe. When you start talking about such issues and you're told you're an idealist and you're not living in reality, but actually, who said our reality? We should not settle for what has been given to us. It should not be that. So I'm hoping the generation that is coming ahead, it will take a while, because the corruption has been deeply rooted for 50 years. You cannot just wake up and uproot it. But I'm sure that as Kenyan youth, we can redefine those values and make a better life for ourselves, and we can move away from seeking alternative means to bring investments and income to ourselves, other than shady deals, but direct links with the government, with institutions, with our careers. And I'm proud of young people who now have gone into the industry. I have doctor friends, lawyer friends, teacher friends, mechanical friends, technical work friends. They're just so dedicated despite the conditions that are in Kenya. And I was saying, I think Kenyans are the most resilient people I know, because despite all this, and despite the government stealing, or people in the government allegedly stealing millions and millions and billions of money meant to make our lives better, we have survived all this while. And I am just so proud of young people who wake up every day to go an extra mile, not only to provide for themselves, but for their families, for their friends, for people back home. It moves me. It makes me wake up each and every day. And, in this moment, no one will understand your struggle. But what makes me happy is that has never stopped us. And in the end, the results will be seen. For now, when you're working, nothing is being seen. But in the end, it shall be seen. So, dear Kenyan youth, fellow Kenyan youth, keep at it. Don't give up hope. Don't give up on your dreams. Keep working. And just keep being smart as you are. know that as a fellow young person, I am proud of you, I am thinking of you, and we are going to do this. So yes, Kenyan youth, we got this. It was really nice to get to share that conversation, and I think in other episodes I will actually invite young people onto the show and ask them about their personal experiences, growing up and becoming industry people and surviving out here, especially in Nairobi. And I think people who live in Nairobi should be given an award. Living in Nairobi is like running a marathon. You should never stop. You should not go so fast. You should also not go too slow, because if you go too fast, you run out of your breath. But also, if you go too slow, time will pass you by and you will lose. Everything moves fast. Everything is expensive. You have to calculate your money to the last dot. Expenses are more than what you receive. So that means, I play this game called Cash Flow by Robert Kiyosaki. So for you, there's something called the rat race. So the rat race is where most of us are, where sometimes your expenses are more than your income. And you are just in this perpetual circle of poverty. That's where you are. And poverty does not mean that you have zero cash. Poverty means your income is less than your total expenses. So that means there's a space somewhere in there. So the only way somebody gets out of the rat race, so you manage to get out of the rat race when you manage to ensure that your expenses, your income goes beyond your expenses. So how do you do that? Do you invest in stock? Do you invest in land and resell? Do you get a good job? It depends. But that concept that Robert Kiyosaki formed in that game, it gives you a really good perspective into what an average Kenyan youth is in. Because you find that aside from your expenses, you have other expenses that are also important and you have to commit to. So at the end of the month, at the end of the year, your total income is way less than your total expenses. So that means the only time you'll get out of the rat race and go into the big leagues is when you will create your total income to be more than your expenses. And then, to increase your passive income. And passive income is just, aside from your monthly, let's say, salary, what other streams of income do you have? Do you have a place you receive dividends? Or do you have a small business? Do you have other sources of income? So your passive income should increase so much so that you surpass your expenses. So I think you should check out the concept. It's a game, yes, but it teaches you a lot on that. So I'm sure most of us are on the rat race, but not for long. We will get out of that rat race. We live the rat race every day, and at the end of the month you feel like you're drowning, and then you gasp for air 1 minute, and then you're drowning again. But I'm sure we'll get out of that rat race in time. Otherwise, just know that I recognize your struggle, and I know you're smart, you're hardworking, you have survived this far, you can still survive. There's nothing that we cannot survive, and we can live and survive anywhere in the world because of the resilience we own. So dear Kenyan youth, you are amazing. Keep at it. I have been your host, Jephthah Malela. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Pieces of My African Soul podcast. See you next time. Ciao.